Because, you know, I don't know, do people take notes on laptop computers here? So, as any professor among you knows, once the students have opened their laptop, you don't have any idea what they're doing. They may be fully present in the classroom, but the chance is extremely remote. More likely that they're looking at if they can get a bargain on a new pair of running shoes. And you know, so that's what this student was responding to. You go into a situation like that with full mindful focus, hopeless. So, you know, you pick your situations. Certainly if you're in an adversarial, if you're in an argument in appellate court, and there's one person on one side and another on the other side, with two sharply drawn positions, a mindful, and only one is proceeding mindfully, it's hard to say who has the advantage. It depends on who the judge is and what the judge is bringing to the situation. The judge might be, when one person is not trying to exaggerate the virtue of his client or the evil of his adversary, the judge might say, this is persuasive to me. And the person who's speaking with the kind of integrity that comes from this full presence in the moment. And the other person is you know, just looking for a kind of a technical point which will let him push his point ahead and make the other guy look bad. The judge, you know, it's very hard to know what happens in that situation. But it's not at all clear to me that in that situation, the person who's being mindful is giving up any advantage. It may well be that that person is in fact more advantageous, is going to do better than the person who's not mindful. So the answer is, I'll come back to this, but I'd love to see a situation where you have a mindful courtroom in which there's agreement among the judge and the two adversarial counsel and the other people in the courtroom who affect decisions, the probation officers or whatever. If all of those people are approaching the disposition of the case from a mindful perspective, is to me a very exciting possibility. And let me stick with that point for a minute, because we have, so far we've been talking mostly about how mindfulness can be helpful to the individual law student, lawyer, prosecutor, judge, and have them become more effective in their work and less stressed and more likely to be happy and satisfied in their work. All of which is important, all of which I think in the aggregate would improve the quality of justice.
Can I respond to his question? Because I think I can give an example of how you can look differently to your work. Because I'm actually this week I just a big case, starting court case, a big fraud case, and I was thinking about what you said, like the arguments that you have on one side and that you all have to, what do you call it, oppose, right? I think a mindful approach would be to look at it from a different perspective. So you're actually really looking at a conflict. What is actually going on here? So what is this really about? This is also what you learn in the mediation education, where you look at what's underneath a conflict, because most of the times there's a lot more that we don't see. And we see arguments A, B, and C, but what it's actually about, it's D. So this is, and to choose for a solution like that, it takes courage. Because you risk that a judge will say, well, you didn't oppose everything the right way. But, so it takes courage to do that. And so this week I had this hearing, it's not finished yet. I have to leave my argument next week. But I know that there are some other lawyers that think I'm totally crazy. And one of them was emailing me, like, you're so naive, it's really disarming. And I was like, you know, it hurts when people do that. But on the other hand, I thought, well, actually it's quite good, because he's disarmed. And that's really what we want, right? So if we were all disarmed and would say what we really felt about a case, what is this really about? I think that is what law is about.
May I suggest one thing more if I hear this? I'm a judge, and I would say take the judge with you. Ask him, do you want me to oppose one, A, B, C, and D? Is it important for your decision if I do that? Because I can do it if you want to. But I really don't want to do it. I want to look in a different way. That can be your way, that can be a different way. It can be a mindful way, it can be another way. But why not asking the judge? We don't do that, because it's not common in our system. The judge is there, the parties are here. But it's beginning that you can do that. And being a judge myself, I would like that people are doing it. And that's also a little bit of comment on the first question about responsibility. Of course, a lawyer has a responsibility, the prosecutor has a responsibility, but the client, in a criminal case, has a responsibility as well. Yesterday in my courtroom, I give you just one little thing what happened, and I was laughing yesterday. The prosecutor didn't know what to do with a person. Couldn't find something for a punishment. And she asked the suspect, what do we have to do with you? Because I don't know yet. And it was her moment. And then he said, that's your problem. And he said it rather rude. He said, it's your fucking problem, in Dutch. Just the F word was there. And then I started to laugh and I said, no sir, it's also your problem. And the prosecutor is asking for help, so help him. And that's what finally happened. He made his own judgment, which we followed. So it can happen. And you probably laugh, but it's really true. This is what happened yesterday. In the beginning it was rude and maybe, how do you say it, unpolite. But if you look through it and make it also his responsibility, and that's my thing, make it a responsibility for everyone. Sometimes it helps, not all the time.
But little by little, as that kind of incident happens in more courtrooms, little by little things will start to change.
Can I ask you a question? I'm a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer, and sometimes you have your client in your office and he starts rambling and babbling and you think, oh my God, where is this going? All kinds of sob stories are going on, and then I try to be mindful and attentive, but where do you set your own boundaries then? If you want to be, you can sit there for 3 hours if you want to, but you have other cases, other stuff to do. How do you, where the mindfulness ends and what is...
Getting on with business. I think what mindfulness does in that situation, and I appreciate your raising, the real world, a pressing real world question. What mindfulness does is give you a container to hold that question. And it creates options for you, choices to make. Just the choice as you framed it. I want to be respectful of this person. I want to respect the fact that I know what the elements of the crime are, and that's what I'm really interested in. But I also know that this guy doesn't see it that way. This person sees it in a different way. And I want to respect that and integrate his view of this into my defense that I give him. And I also know that I've got work to do. So you say to him, I have another client meeting scheduled. I wish I could spend all afternoon with you, but I can only, we only have half an hour, and I want to shape our conversation in these ways. I want to respect what your concerns are, and I want to also make sure that we cover some points which are going to be crucial to me and to the judge who's going to hear this case. And you just The fact that your mindfulness lets you see the complexity of the situation and to evaluate the demands of, part of it is just a reflex. When I've been really busy, I start looking at my watch as soon as the person sits down in the chair, and he knows I'm looking at my watch. To say that my minimum interview is going to be 10 minutes and my maximum is going to be 30 minutes. That's what you go in with, depending on what your day is like that day. And then you've got, framework for doing this. And making that person feel like he's been heard. There's a judge, a judge with a very powerful position in the United States, who's just published a book, a little pamphlet, far from a book, a pamphlet on mindfulness and judging. And he takes the position in that something that judges have to do in the United States. If any of you want to look that up, you can go online. His name is Jeremy Fogel. And I'm sure it's online under his name, Mindfulness and Judging. He takes as an example a judge taking a guilty plea. And there's a whole law built up around taking a guilty plea in the United States, and the judge has to make sure that it's voluntary, it's not coerced, that there's full understanding of a bunch of things. And he says in his article that a lot of judges just go through that it's like filling out a form to get to buy a new cell phone. And he says the mindful judge has that person stand in front of him and treats him as if he's never taken a plea before. And he gives him his full, undivided attention. And that person, he says, this judge says, in his own experience, if he gives that person that kind of mindful attention, and then gives him a serious sentence with real time, which in the United States means sentences that you would think barbarous. If the judge gives him real time, often that person will still say, thank you for giving me, in my case, full attention, for seeing me fully as a human being, and for making your decision. And one prosecutor I was working with last month said one of the high points of his career was when he finished a hard-fought case and got a conviction against the guy for a serious felony. After the trial was over, the defendant's mother came up to him and said, I don't like it, I don't agree with the verdict, I think it was a mistake, but I want to tell you that I am really satisfied with the way you treated my son. You respected his humanity, you recognized the difficulties that he was facing in his life, and I feel like you that you handled this case in a way that was fully respectful. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And for a prosecutor, our criminal justice system is in turmoil at present. And one of the reasons is that prosecutors seem to treat defendants as if they're not fully human beings. Mindfulness is a way of helping prosecutors find the space to deal with the complexity of their situation, and the fact that no defendant, no matter how bad, is simply the worst act that they ever did in their lives. They're people. They're full people with mothers and fathers and often children and spouses.